Hey, everybody. Welcome back to Inside the Force. Dave Cottingham here with my good buddy Cyber Ren from the Mandalorian podcast. How's it going, brother?
Hello, everybody. It is going well. I'm glad to be back with you here.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
This week I'm about to leave for my vacation here. Actually, as I'm releasing this, I'm heading to Disney World. So I wanted to squeeze
rub it in.
Yeah, exactly. I have some business to attend to at Batu, so I got to make my trip down there.
You're a smuggler. That's what you're saying, right?
Exactly. Yeah. Hondo's got a job for me. So before I left, I wanted to squeeze another episode in. Unfortunately, Cody has got some stuff going on. He's actually moving, so he's packing up and moving houses. He's actually, I don't know if you knew this, Cyber. He's actually moving right down the street from me.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, so he's moving into my town for sales here. And so it's going to be cool to have him around closer. But anyway, thanks for joining me on this last second call here. I know you got 2 hours on me, so it's not too late for you yet.
It's not too late, no. Yeah, anytime. I told you anytime.
I know. And I know you got all these other nights you're recording your podcast, so I got to squeeze you in when I can.
Yeah.
All right. Thanks, everybody, for joining us. We've got episode 6 of The Bad Batch to talk about a little bit. Of course, the Mandalorian podcast, we go into a major deep dive of that already, but we're going to talk a little bit about that more here. War of the Bounty Hunters, the comic series, the big major crossover that's out there right now. We're going to talk about the number 1 issue that actually came out last week. Big reveal into there. So we're going to talk about that. Some of the news tidbits that are out there. And then our main topic, kind of wrap that War of the Bounty Hunters back into this a little bit. But I want to talk about the Book of Boba Fett since I've got Cyber here with me. Because, we're going to cover that with the Mandalore show. And we haven't really dived too deep into actually what we think is going to happen in that show, how it's going to relate to the Mandalorian, how it's going to relate possibly to an Ahsoka series that's tied to it and whatnot. So we'll just start the speculation as that show ramps up in post-production and gets ready to release later this year. Basically, in about 6 months, we'll be getting that show. So, lots to get into. So, The Bad Batch, episode 6 aired this past Friday, called Decommissioned. We get a little bit more of the relationship between the Bad Batch, Clone Force 99, and Sid, their new moneymaker, in a sense.
We did, yeah.
That's right. So we always talk Cyber on this overall in the beginning, just basically overall impression of the episode. What did you think? What are your thoughts about it?
Yeah, I mean, it was a good episode. It was a little more on the action side of things than we've had in the last couple. So they kind of gave us a little bit more high tempo, I guess you could say. And it was a lot of fun. I think it gave our team a kind of a mission to accomplish and go out and we're watching them basically try to make money to survive and repair the ship and pay for all that kind of stuff. And because we've been wondering, where's this team going to hide? Where are they going to make a base of operations? Or are they going to be on the run all the time? And it looks like right now at this point in the season, they've found a safe place to kind of hang out and get some money much needed. So I think it was a good kind of a transition episode that shows us that they're, they've got to find work. They've got to start feeling or leading more of a normal life out there on the rim, and instead of having everything provided for them all the time, they're figuring it out, and this is one way that's helping them do that.
Yeah, and of course, as Dave Filoni has done in most, if not all, of his series, he's making major connections. There's obviously that. There's still that lingering thought out there that this is basically season 8 of the Clone Wars. Yeah. And we get a little bit more of that even in this episode with the return of the Martez sisters from season 7. It was a welcome surprise. I think the beauty of this season so far is that a lot of this thing has been kept under wraps. I mean, we don't even know, or at least I haven't. I don't even know what episode 7 is titled yet. Until I wake up on Friday and see it on the list there. So they're doing a great job keeping things quiet, keeping these cameos quiet. I don't know. Was it a pleasant surprise to see the connection and these characters coming back from season 7?
Yeah, well, that was the fun of this episode, because it's not just the Martez sisters. I mean, there was some deep pulls coming in this episode, and yeah, it's great to see them come back, which gives you that feeling that, yes, this is a continuation of the Clone Wars, because the Martez sisters we just saw in a 4-episode story arc with Ahsoka in the last season of Clone Wars. So it was very fresh, at least for fans of the show. It's very fresh in our minds who these girls are, and to see that they are out there in the galaxy somewhere and still doing their thing. Obviously, they're working for somebody, trying to make some money for themselves, and it kind of brings everything full circle, because it gives you that 6 degrees of separation. You know, that Ahsoka was attached to these Bad Batch guys a little bit. She was attached to the Martez sisters. Now the Bad Batch and the Martez sisters come together. It's kind of created this triangle now and it's really cool. But what I had fun with was when we saw the 2 guys in Sid's gambling bar there, the Athorian and the Weequay. I swear I recognized them. They're sitting there gambling on whether Omega can hit the target or not. And I thought, wait a second, I recognize those guys. And they're also from that 4-episode story arc in Clone Wars Season 7. They were in the prison cell next to Ahsoka and the Martez sisters, and they actually helped them escape. And if you remember, when they got out of the prison, the Athorian grabbed one of the guards and slammed him to the ground like the Hulk does to Loki in the first Avengers movie. And I thought, that has to be the same guys. So I went back and checked, did some screen captures, and it's exactly the same voices, same clothing. They haven't changed. So I thought that was a fun connection.
Were they, I forgot to look back, but were they in episode 5? Were they in the first episode when they walked into the bar too? I can't remember if they were sitting there also. I feel like they were, but I need to go back and look at that.
I think
they were. Yeah. But they were clear as day, like you said, sitting there with the blue outfit. And you even have, we posted a picture, you posted a picture of the actual figure, right?
I did, yeah, on our Facebook page for Mandalorian.
Yeah, hopefully the question is that the same Ithorian that's in the cantina in episode 4? Who knows? But because there is a name for that character, which I forgot already what it is. But Hammerhead is the name that everybody knows him by. Interesting about the Omega character, because we wanted to we talked about this briefly off air here, but the actor that plays Omega is Michelle Ang, and I didn't realize that she is 37 years old.
That's crazy. When you see the picture of her, she looks 25 at the most.
At the most. I thought she was in her early 20s, yeah. She's from New Zealand. She's been acting for a long time now, 20 years or so. And just wanted to make, there's an interview, I think you mentioned this and you posted this too. There's an interview that came out yesterday with her talking about the character of Omega and her background. And her background is, like I said, New Zealand. And she was invited to basically use her accent. That's why you do hear Omega have this little accent.
And I love that accent. I know it's New Zealand, it makes sense, because I've always loved her accent, but I didn't pick up on it. I couldn't tell which one it was.
I did not either. But it even says in this article that it pays an homage to fellow Kiwi Tamara Morrison, who plays Boba, Jango, all the clones, basically.
Yep.
So is that basically telling us that Omega, I mean, maybe it's obvious to everybody, but there's still that big lingering question. Is Omega a clone of Jango Fett?
Right. Is she possibly Boba's sister?
Basically, yes, in a sense. Do you think this is, I don't know, do you think this is a little bit of a kind of a tidbit that they're throwing out there to possibly make that connection?
I think it could be because they didn't flat out say, hey, this is the connection. They just interviewed her and said, hey, you're from New Zealand. And guess what? That's where Tamora is from as well. They left it at that. So it could go one of two ways. I mean, these guys like to do it. They like to throw us a crumb and it completely leads us down the wrong trail. It could mean they just like to watch everybody freak out and go nuts about it. So I think they're probably looking for what kind of reaction that gets. And then we'll see what they do with it. But it could be like, okay, how many of you fans are smart enough to acknowledge this and see it? And guess what? That's like foreshadowing down the road that, Omega is going to be connected to Boba Fett somehow. And will we see Boba Fett show up in this timeline? I mean, yeah. It's cool.
I do believe that something like that is going to happen. I do think Boba Fett will show up.
And does he know about her?
That's the big question. Yes, does he know about her? Does he find out about this other clone, this female clone that is basically related to him? Right. Yeah, that's going to be a big revelation. So I just thought that was interesting because she's, we keep going back and forth on what age Omega is. Is she 9, 10, 12, 13?
It's hard to tell. Yeah.
It's amazing that a 37-year-old actress is playing the voice. That's fantastic.
Well, and when you read the interview too, like they talk about how does she make her voice sound like that? And she actually, that's not her real voice. She does give her voice a higher pitch to sound more young. And she speaks with a youthful energy to also sound like that kid. So, I mean, she does a fantastic job.
Because they mentioned how they're doing the interview over the phone. And the person on the other end is saying, it's unmistakable. It sounds like Omega, but it sounds like an older Omega. Yeah. So she does adjust her voice when she's doing the recording, which is fantastic. So
yeah, very cool.
Very cool. A couple of things too on top of the Bad Batch, getting into the Mandalorian a little bit, and we'll come back to this, but apparently Mando season 3 has not started shooting.
Yeah.
And apparently it's not shooting until late 2021 / early 2022. So it may not even it's either going to start in 2021, not finish until 2022, or actually not start until 2022. How do we feel about this?
That's crazy to me because they also announced that Boba Fett just finished shooting.
Correct.
And we thought season 3 would start right after Boba Fett finished. They moved from one project to the next. And man, it makes my first question is, well, what are they doing in the meantime that's taken up their time since Boba Fett has ended? And I think for us, what sucks about that is that means we're probably going to wait even longer for Mandalorian. And it's starting to feel like Game of Thrones territory where you wait a year and a half before the next season to come out.
Very true. The only solace I can take from this is that, is it possible, and maybe they've kept this secret, is it possible that they're actually ready to shoot Ahsoka right now?
Yeah.
That's the only thing, because you're right. I mean, Bad Batch, they may even be working on season 2. That's fine, but that's a whole nother team. That's animators.
Yeah.
Live action wise, Andor, I think Andor is still doing a couple pickup shots. So they do have that going on. Boba Fett, like you said, is just wrapped. I mean, besides Mandalorian and Ahsoka, we don't know necessarily. Well, Obi-Wan is getting ready to go. But again, that's a whole different team. Unless it's the same. That's the thing too, is it the same crews that are working on all these Disney Plus shows? Because if that's the case, then you probably have to shoot these one in order, right? You can't have multiple productions going on at the same time. Mm-hmm. It seemed like Andor, as far as what I've seen and read, it seemed like Andor was a lot of that was done on location. They built these little towns or these little locations. I didn't see or hear much of that being shot on the volume. Now, Obi-Wan, according to some interviews that I've read, Obi-Wan seems like a lot of that's going to be on the volume.
And actually, I'll give you facts about that right now. I know you brought up this, or you're going to be bringing up the interview with Ewan McGregor and Pedro Pascal. Right in the beginning of that interview, they talk about that, and Ewan McGregor does say, "Wow, that volume is fantastic. We are working on it right now." And he said, "I'm working with all the people that you work with for The Mandalorian."
Yep.
So they are using
go.
predominantly a lot of the same crew. So yeah.
Yeah. So, and as far as I know, I think they only have. I think I could totally be wrong. I think they only have 2 of those sets, the volume sets. They had a smaller one for season 1, and then they actually built a bigger one for season 2. So unless they got rid of the first one, but I feel like they have 2 versions of that volume.
Okay, I thought they just expanded the first one to make it bigger.
Well, that's true. They may have. I know that the second one was bigger, but I don't know if they built the second one or if they just expanded the first one. So you're right. They could still only have one set. So that would make it hard to do Mandalorian season 3 and Obi-Wan at the same time.
It would.
So maybe that's the case. Maybe we got Obi-Wan shooting now and into the summer, but I can't imagine that going on all the way till the end of the year. So maybe they have something like Ahsoka ramped up, ready to go, because that would make sense. Possibly that, Book of Boba Fett comes out, which, they've kind of dubbed that, at least what I read in the article, they kind of dubbed that Mandalorian 2.5, season 2.5, okay. Right? So it's like,
cool.
There could be some kind of continuation there. I mean, Mandalorian most likely may even show up in the Book of Boba Fett.
Why not? Why wouldn't he?
Right, totally. Yeah. If they're making these all connected, might as well have them connected in a way that these characters cross over.
Yep.
So if you're thinking storyline, very similar to like the MCU, you could look at it and think, okay, Book of Boba Fett's going to come out, and then Ahsoka is going to come out, and then season 3 of Mandalorian, right? So they could be shooting in that order. Is the only thing I can think of.
Well, and we talked about this on our other show too, is that I think what they want is to have a Star Wars show on Disney Plus at every quarter of the year, so that way it's something new, that they don't want any breaks at all. So if that means having to slow down production of one show to be able to get that schedule in alignment like that, so that for 2 months it's one show, for 2 months it's the next, and it works its way through. You got Star Wars all year long. I think that's what they're trying to shoot for with all of these interconnected shows, and that keeps their Disney Plus subscriptions up, and it keeps people, tuning in. So
that's very true. Yeah. That's very true. So, so that's that's technically some bad news, because that would mean technically they're not even starting to shoot season 3. They're shooting the start of season 3 a year after season 2 premiered.
Crazy.
So it's got to be another, if you think production's going to last 2-3 months, this thing easily isn't coming out until next summer at the earliest.
No. Yeah, you're right.
And that's maybe why, I'll tell you, that's maybe why they moved Star Wars Celebration up from August to May, because they could premiere it at Celebration in May. There's probably enough time to get the episodes done by then. Celebration is just going to have a bunch of stuff. There's going to be so much revealed there and shown there. So, but that just means, that just means the Mandalorian show is going to last a lot longer, right?
If they keep stretching it out between seasons.
Exactly.
But how much do you think, because we also know Pedro Pascal just signed on to be the lead in the new show The Last of Us, which is based on the PlayStation game series.
That's right.
Maybe his schedule, because I know he signed, there's some crazy details in his contracts, but one show gets to come before the other one, and I think The Last of Us might be part of that. He might have commitments to that show now, and it just works out with Disney's schedule. And
is that a show or a movie?
It's going to be a new series.
Is it a TV series?
Yeah, another TV series. Yeah.
Okay.
I'm not sure what channel. I don't know if it's HBO, possibly. I'm not sure who has it, but it is a series, and it's actually being filmed right here in my backyard, which is kind of cool.
Oh, yeah, cool.
I took some headshots. I'm gonna sign up for a background role.
Oh yeah, great.
See if I can get in there. Yeah.
Where is it shooting? Vancouver?
Alberta.
Oh, it's shooting in Alberta.
So,
Okay,
yeah,
nice.
Alberta.
Okay.
At least parts of it are anyway. Because we've got Calgary's got a brand new film studio that they've built here recently, and I think this is going to be one of the first big projects to actually use it.
Nice.
And then a lot of big production companies like to use our landscape here because we've got a lot of prairies that lead into the mountains and stuff. And since The Last of Us is a very post-apocalyptic kind of thing, I think our territory really suits that look. So,
yeah, I've never played the game, but I've watched some of the trailers and the gameplay, and I've read a little bit about the story. The story is fantastic, so I'm definitely eager to see that series.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, Mandalorian is going to be a lot longer down the road. I don't think. I don't think it has anything to do with storylines or creative differences or the whole thing with Gina Carano. I don't think that's an issue. I really think that whatever the story is, I think has to possibly come after we see what happens with Boba Fett, what happens with Ahsoka, and then that storyline kicks in. So I just think it's timing with the other shows.
I think so. And I mean, we speculated how much, what could season 3 be about? And I think our last discussion was, is it all about going to save Mandalore with Bo-Katan? I mean, maybe that takes some time for them to build up the forces they need to go, to go do that. So, if that's part of the storyline.
Yeah.
I don't know.
But something's got to be in there about Thrawn too, right? So,
yeah, exactly.
It's going to be interesting to see where that goes. You did mention the Ewan McGregor, Pedro Pascal conversation. So Variety puts out this actor on actors kind of interviews, talking to each other, and that's out there now. If anybody wants to go check it out, I think you said it was about 30 minutes long.
Yeah, half an hour. Yeah.
I have not watched it. I read a lot of the transcript on it, so very interesting. No, there's no big, obviously, spoilers or anything that's out there with the conversation. They'd never let them do that.
No,
but
it's just them. Yeah, it's just them complimenting each other and talking to each other about how cool it is to be part of Star Wars. It's a fun conversation.
A very fun conversation, and I love the fact that I read the part where they talked about how they've both interacted with the, a Yoda character. Ewan with Yoda, and then of course Pedro Pascal with Grogu. And they did talk about how, the importance of it being a puppet versus a CG character, because Ewan said he really enjoyed, on the first set of episode 1, Yoda was a puppet before they replaced him with CG, and then of course they used CG for episodes 2 and 3. He said it was a lot harder in 2 and 3 not acting against a puppet, and even though Yoda, in my opinion, looks a lot better as a CG character, you do miss that practicality, which Pedro was able to experience because Grogu was an animatronic, which was phenomenal. But nowadays I feel like the animatronics look a lot more real than a puppet does. And so I think it works when it works, and I think CG works when it works. I think it really depends on the complications of the character, right? I mean, if there's a lot of movement and a lot of expression that needs to happen, it's hard to get that with a puppet, or an animatronic. I don't know. I think CG is okay, and I think it, as a viewer, in a way, I get it. As an actor, it might be a little tougher, but as a viewer, I think it's incredible to see these types of characters.
Well, I mean, both technologies have come around or come so far ahead in the last few years. So either or, they both look fantastic. But the difference is when it's CG, you can still tell it's CG. You know when it's, whether it's the CG itself that doesn't look quite 100% real, or you can tell that the actors acting across from it, they're not looking at what they should be looking at. Like the eyes don't meet. There's always a tell that lets you know this is CG because something doesn't quite match up. Whereas with the puppets, with the animatronics, it allows the actors to actually really, express and emote with what's right in front of them, which is why I like bringing it back to the volume, that they can feel like they're in that environment and not just in front of a blue screen or a green screen, which I think helps them a lot as well. Yeah. Yeah.
So go check out that conversation is really neat. Seeing those two stars of these Star Wars series out there that are talking to each other. It's great.
It's fun. Yeah.
Okay, so before we get into, I wanted to talk, before we get into our main topic, we'll talk about the War of the Bounty Hunters.
Yes.
So that comic, it's a big, the first really major comic crossover that Marvel has done with the Star Wars line since Marvel got the rights back in 2014. There's been a little bit of crossover, but nothing like this. This crossover has taken place through all the books that are currently out there, which are Star Wars, Darth Vader, Bounty Hunters, and Dr. Aphra. And so the War of the Bounty Hunters, though, is its own series. So it's a 5-issue series. Issue 1 came out last week. There's a what they call an alpha issue. Did you read the alpha issue? Okay.
Just issue 1, yeah.
It's on the drive as well if you want to read it.
Cool.
But the alpha issue basically literally takes place right after episode 5. It's basically Boba Fett leaving Cloud City and calls Bib Fortuna, telling him that he's en route. And then of course he stops for repairs, and Han Solo gets taken from him. And that's where this issue takes place. It picks up right after that. Now the crossovers, I haven't read the tie-ins across these other Star Wars lines yet, but I'm assuming, like any crossover, and I'm sure you've read a ton of them, Cyber, because I know you've read comics a lot. The tie-ins add to the story, but they're not essential to follow the story. So You could read Star Wars, the tie-in, and probably get additional information, but you could read just these 5 issues of War of the Bounty Hunters and get what's going on.
Get the idea, yep, for sure.
Yeah. So this one came out, issue number 1. It's been out a week now, and there was a pretty major reveal. So I want to say spoilers. If you don't want to hear this, you might want to skip the next 5 minutes. But But we do want to talk about it because it's been out there a week. I actually got spoiled on it because I was an idiot, and I'm on social and I saw it. But so we're going to talk about it right now. Basically, the premise of this is that there's a bounty out on Boba Fett now to kind of get him off the table, as Han Solo is being used. The carbonated encased Han Solo is getting used for leverage against the Hutts.
Right. Yep.
And the person in possession of Han Solo now is none other than Kira from the Solo movie, played by Emilia Clarke.
Yes. What a shock.
How surprised were you? Yeah.
I was shocked because I didn't know anything about this until you sent me the comic to read, so I had no idea what was coming. And I mean, throughout the issue, you don't know it's her. She's cloaked and in darkness the entire time. And it's not until the last page of the comic you get the reveal, and it was definitely a whoa moment, and very cool, because I enjoyed the Kira character from the Solo movie, and I had hoped that we were going to get a sequel, we were going to see more of her, or she was going to go off into her own story somewhere. I really enjoyed her character, so it was really cool to see her come back.
Okay, so I will say this. Now, again, I knew going into reading it that it was her that's going to be revealed at the end. But I do believe I would have figured it out, because I do think there's a couple of hints during the book. One, and I didn't have time to really look at the character, but the woman, the alien woman that's talking to her as she's cloaked in the beginning, right?
Okay.
That character was in Solo as well. They were talking to Beckett on when they got on the barge for Dryden. She's the one. She's the first that came up to Beckett and said, "Yeah, Dryden will see you now."
Okay, so you're talking about the kind of lizardy rock looking one?
Yes.
Her name's Margot, I think. It says here. I'm looking at it right now.
Right.
Margot, yeah.
Well, she's in Solo as well. She's on the barge.
Oh, okay. I don't remember.
So as soon as I saw her, I was like, oh, well, this totally makes sense.
Huh.
And then later on, when Jabba and the rest of the Hutts are discussing, this invitation that they got, they mentioned on there that they mentioned the return of an organization, and that the organization, Jabba believes that the leader who had a formidable reputation, had not been heard of in so many years, probably has been killed. And that this new person probably killed him and replaced him. Now we know from Star Wars Rebels how Maul died. Maul died at the hands of Obi-Wan. But at that time, here's the thing. At that time, we did not know he used to run Crimson Dawn until Solo came out. Right? Mm-hmm. So when did he lose Crimson Dawn? We still don't know. Between Solo, when we see him in Solo, and then we see him in Rebels, which and you've never seen Rebels, I don't think, right?
I'm not that far in.
Okay, so sorry, I may be spoiling a little bit for you, but he shows up in Rebels on Malachor, which is a Sith planet. So we don't know what happens between Solo and that when he shows up in Rebels. So I think we may be getting a little bit of that story in this. If not, I think we'll get it somehow somewhere later. But that conversation, when I was following that, I was like, they're talking about Crimson Dawn, they're talking about Maul, and so I would think that this hooded figure would be Kira. And so I feel like I would have thought of that, even though I already knew who it was.
We'll never know now because you were spoiled.
I know, right? Yeah. But overall, I thought it was a fantastic start to the series. I'm really interested in how far they can go with it, because again, it's always tough to do these stories in between these movies because we know how it's going to end. We know in the end, Han Solo gets hung up there in Jabba's palace. So I don't know how, knowing the ending in a sense already, are you still that interested in figuring out where this comic goes?
Totally. I've expressed a couple times, and maybe it was even the last time I was on your show here. I love, because there's between the movies, there's years of time, a couple years of time, and there's, so much can happen in just 1 year in this galaxy far, far away. So to me, there's so much story that they can fill in, and it's neat to see how they got from point A to point B. All we saw was Boba Fett loading Han Solo onto Slave One and flew away. That was it. And the next time we see it, Han Solo's hanging up at Jabba's palace. So there's obviously a journey that has to happen there. And that's what this comic book is about. How does Boba Fett get there? And was it an easy ride? No, it wasn't an easy ride. So I love it. I think there's so many gaps within the movie's storylines that they can fill in and just show us how everything got to where it was, to where it, like you said, we know how things ended, but how did we get there? We don't always know how it got there. And to me, because we love this stuff so much, I just would love to see it all. If they could piece all of this together and give us like a 12-hour movie because they've now filled in all the gaps, I'd be living in it. I'd love it.
No kidding.
Yeah,
no kidding.
So,
yeah, I agree. I'm with you. I definitely love diving into these stories and filling in these gaps. But a part of me always, and I know the listeners have probably heard me complain about this for years now, but there's always a part of me that just knows that certain things can't happen. So the suspense, a little bit of it is a little
takes a bit away from you,
right? Like Boba Fett is going to survive. he's going to survive. He could be in danger, but he's never going to be in danger enough to die. Right.
Yeah.
So
people complain about that with a lot of, it's not just Star Wars. Any franchise that has gone back to retell different stories, fans have always complained about that. But again, I like that they're filling in the gaps. I love seeing the journey to get from point A to point B.
But Kira's not safe.
Yeah, we have no idea what happened to her, right?
Right. And as we saw in this book, again, sorry, spoilers, but Zuckuss and Forlom, two bounty hunters that were in episode 5 as part of the 6 that were hunting down in Solo, they're apparently dead now. So it is ending some storylines here with some certain characters.
I'm glad you brought them up, because that's actually the page I have on my screen right now. I wanted to bring them up too, because I wanted to make sure. So those are 2 of the guys that we saw on the bridge when Darth Vader was, saying that, you scum of the galaxy, I'm higher. You got to track this down for me. And you just get a panning shot of them. So
yep.
Yeah, they look very familiar, and it's cool. It's neat that they're back, and Boba Fett definitely makes short work of them.
Yeah, they're kind of a pair too. They're always running together. Zuckuss and Forlom are always usually running together. So,
okay. Cool.
And of course, Dengar, Bosk, and IG-88 were the other ones out on that bridge.
Right. Yep.
So that book is out there. Of course, number 2 doesn't drop until next month, early July. So, and this thing goes all the way through, let's see, July, August, September, October. I think October is issue 5. So,
yeah, 5-issue run. Nice.
5-issue run. Yeah, with all the tie-ins leading up to the October finale. So, go get that at your local comic stores. Of course, obviously digitally on Comixology or anything you guys want to listen on or watch or read on. It's on there. All right, so this is a good segue into our topic here with the War of the Bounty Hunters. With, of course, the news about season 3 being delayed for shooting of The Mandalorian, Boba Fett. The Book of Boba Fett show being labeled as basically season 2.5 of The Mandalorian. Let's dive into a little bit more details of it and see if we can, just think about some possible storylines or details that could come up. One thing I did read also, I think, that I forgot to mention was there were some rumors out there that Bosk is actually going to be showing up in the Book of Boba Fett.
That would make sense. Why not?
Totally makes sense. Although it had been talked about from the story group that Bosk was on Jabba's barge and died on the barge in Return of the Jedi. So apparently he did not, if he is coming into the show. Now, of course, we never saw him die. He is on the barge, though. There is a shot of him. If you watch Return of the Jedi, he is on the barge. So apparently he survives. That's fine. Everybody. Dengar is also on the barge. He survives because we know he shows up later.
Bosk, from what we've seen of Bosk before, he does sometimes have a bit of a cowardly way to him. So maybe when the firefight broke out, he took off.
That's very true. Right? Yeah, that's very true. He lives to fight another day.
Yeah.
So interesting that will happen if that does, because Bosk is a very popular character with Star Wars fans.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so the Book of Boba Fett. Obviously, last we saw it, he was killing Bib Fortuna, taking the throne, possibly running the cartel now. The Hutt cartel, probably not the Hutt cartel, but some kind of cartel that whatever Bib Fortuna was running. I don't know. How much have you thought about this yet? What do we see? I mean, right now all we know is Boba Fett and Fennec is by his side.
Yep.
Possibly Boss now coming in. I don't know. Have you thought of how actually this is going to tie into The Mandalorian?
Well, I think we have to start from the beginning. Why is Boba Fett taking over? He went it's hard for me because he's kind of an action guy. It's hard for me to see him sitting on a throne and telling everyone else what to do. I see it, but maybe he's getting old, maybe he's getting tired, and he just wants to run a syndicate. Maybe that's all he wants to do. That's what he's been working towards his entire bounty career, is to sit on the chair and be the boss, right? I mean, I guess what else are you doing? You're working your way up the ladder, and he finally had the opportunity to do that. So I think you start from there, and now you go forward. That clip we saw at the very end of the last episode of Mandalorian, how far in the future was that? Because we saw him help Mando and Bo-Katan in their last mission, and then it cuts to credits and it cuts to Boba Fett showing up on Tatooine there. So how much time has passed? I think if we got a timeline, that might give us an idea of where this is going to be. Will this show be? This is called the Book of Boba Fett. So was that clip something far in the future, and now we're going to get chapters that lead up to how does he get there? Or is it going to begin from that spot, and now it's going to be chapters of what he is doing? Like, what's chapter 1? Well, I gotta take out all my rivals, and I gotta get people to work for me, and that's my initial thoughts so far. And I know this is going to be a great brainstorming session, and hopefully try to figure it out.
That's interesting. That's an interesting thought of when does that scene take place, because that would be an interesting storytelling mechanism. Is we show that scene, and now we see how we got to that scene versus where do we go after that scene? Because I do like that. I do like the fact that when he leaves the Mandalorian and hooks back up with Fennec and decides to do this, is it as simple as just walking in Jabba's palace and shooting Bib? Probably not.
No.
There's probably a lot of people he has to go through in order to get that far. So I can definitely see that happening. That's actually a very good point. Because that's just it's interesting to find out. I think you depending on what he's been doing, because there is that issue of what he's been doing for 5 years between Return of the Jedi and when we see him track down Din, right, 5 years later. Because has he just been hanging out in the desert for 5 years? I mean, that's hard to believe, partially for me, because he's, like you said, he's so resourceful, and he could easily have gotten a ship and got off planet and kind of rebuilt his status. But why did he stay there? I think that part can be told as well. Like the missing 5 years of surviving the Sarlacc. Well, that's a good question. Do you actually think we'll see the scene of him surviving the Sarlacc? Because I think we will.
Yeah, we've talked, and that could be one of the chapters, like you said, that him sitting on the throne at the end could be the very end of the story. So we go back in time now. How does he survive, and what happens to him? Like you're just saying, for the 5 years. I mean, the Sarlacc, I think, obviously caused a lot of damage. It wrecked his armor. You see all the scarring on him when he does show up. He probably took a long time to heal, and maybe he didn't know where his armor was, and maybe I'm just going to stay here and live a hermit-like life until he catches wind that Cobb Vanth has his armor, and then that lights a spark for him to go after it again. We don't really know. Was he just biding his time all those years? Was he just healing because he was near death? Maybe he had no means of getting. Yes, he is resourceful, but if he's injured that badly, maybe it just took a couple years to really get back on his feet and get going again. I mean, because he seemed to have been very, I said hermit, but maybe more like monk-like. He seemed to be more internalizing everything and kind of, acting more like a wandering monk. When we first see him, he's wrapped in his robes. He's got the walking stick, and so it seemed like his lifestyle had changed, and then maybe catching wind of his armor sparked him realizing, hey, I can get back to where I was.
Mm-hmm. Well,
yeah.
and I don't know. I can't remember if we talked about this on the Mandalore, but because he just when he's tracking Din, I mean, he shows up with Slave One, so he has to get Slave One
right.
back somehow, or else he's had Slave One this whole time.
That's true.
You know, again, there's just some lingering question there. Like,
I forgot about Slave One. You're right.
why was he there on Tatooine still? And I mean, I almost feel like I get it. He could definitely have been recovering, but it might have been seeing how everything's going to turn out also, you know, because the Empire is just been destroyed, you know, was basically ended when he was surviving after he got out of the Sarlacc. So I'm sure there's a lot of just chaos going on with no rule of law. I mean, and Tatooine really never had rule of law that much anyway. I mean, it had some Empire presence, but it wasn't like controlled by the Republic or the Empire ever. So he could have been could he have been just biding his time and seeing how things worked itself out? And like you said, maybe he just had a hard time finding where his armor was until Din got it and he tracked him, and then of course he tracked him all the way to I can't remember the planet where Grogu was on the Seeing Stone. So that's interesting to think. Of course, we saw him in season 1 when he saves Fennec. You know, Fennec gets shot and basically dies, and luckily he was there to save her and whatnot. So she has this life debt almost in a sense to him. So I think Fennec, for one, definitely is one of the best characters you could have accompanying him in this series, right?
Yep.
So
we talked about it. It seems like because she owes him his life, it's a very similar relationship to Han Solo and Chewbacca. Chewbacca thinks he owes Han a life debt, and he's been by his side through thick and thin, do or die. And it seems like this is now the same version of relationship, but with the bad guys, or the guys in the gray, gray area, right? So, and I think we discussed also on Mandalore the connection possibilities now that Fennec Shan showed up in the Bad Batch.
Right?
Could she have met Boba Fett when he was younger, and they had developed some type of bond or friendship way back then? And that's because we're asking the question: why would he go save her in the desert? What does it matter? He doesn't care. He doesn't care about anybody. So why would he go save her unless there was a prior relationship there that he knew? He knew her from and went to rescue her, and there you go. And now their story continues together.
Yes, that can definitely be a connection. And he could have easily come up on this person in the desert and obviously just noticed that was her, and of course, and then saved her. You know, so
that's maybe, but
I mean, but you know, as bounty hunters, and you know, that's the thing too, is like she's categorized as a bounty hunter right now in Bad Batch, but we knew her as basically an assassin in The Mandalorian. So, is she does she stay a bounty hunter, or does she actually just go on and become this assassin / mercenary? Because Boba Fett has been a bounty hunter, and he's been a bounty hunter pretty much his entire life.
Yeah.
And you know, bounty hunters could work together, but they also fight a lot between each other too. So I'm sure they knew each other, or they do run across each other. But the big question, I think, is again still, how does this play into the storyline of how does this weave through the storyline of the Mandalorian? You know, as we sit there and possibly speculate about season 3, you know, does that go the route of the Mandalorians? Is he going to go help Bo-Katan? Or is he, you know, just going to pick up where he left off and just grab some more bounties? And will go on with his life, and maybe that leads him down another road, another situation where he has to, make life altering decisions as he did with Grogu.
Yeah.
But I feel like, I don't know, I'm starting to get the sense that because we have Boba Fett now, and because we have Ahsoka, and of course we have this mention of Thrawn, which seems like he's going to be the big bad almost in this big storyline.
Yeah.
I feel like season 3 is going to, I'm starting to think that it's going to almost have this call come from Ahsoka saying she needs help. With whatever, the situation of finding Ezra and finding Thrawn in order to find Ezra and stuff like that. Like I kind of have that feeling right now. That's where how that can connect. Now, the Boba Fett connection, would he even consider helping Din now? I mean, his whole pledge was, I'll help you until Grogu, I'll help you. Basically, I'll help Grogu. That's why I'm with you.
Yeah.
Now that that's gone, I don't know the connection yet between the two, unless again, Din needs something and he has to get it from Boba Fett.
That's the only angle I have right now. Is if Boba Fett establishes himself as running Tatooine now and his crime syndicate, we know Tatooine seems to be the heart of Star Wars. Everybody comes back to Star Wars for some reason, whether it's they're looking for somebody or to get information or to hire somebody, right? So you can just see Din Djarin needing to come back to Tatooine to get something he needs, and Boba Fett's going to be the guy that can provide whatever it is he's looking for. And
right.
they have the relationship now, so of course Boba's going to, and it might be one of these things we joke about. This time, Din Djarin comes to him and says, "Look, I need this." Boba said, "Well, you need this. I need that. Go get that for me, and I'll give you this." And there we go, side missions, right?
Yes, that's true. That's a very good idea again, too. So basically, Boba Fett becomes the Sid of this story, right?
Yeah.
I need something. Well, I need something too. So that's actually a very good.
Yeah.
That's actually a very good point, because I don't see. Yeah, I just don't see Din coming to Boba asking for help with a situation, and Boba being like, "Okay, yeah, I'll come help you." I don't see that in him anymore, based on what he's doing.
I don't think they didn't establish that type of friendship with them. There nothing really grew between the two of them. Like you said, it was like, I'll help Grogu, you give me my armor back, and then we're done. And there wasn't like a hug or a shaking of hands or anything. It was just like, I'm doing this, and then I'm out of here.
Yep.
So I don't think Din would ever come to him and say, "Hey, buddy, like long time no see, come help me with something." They didn't have that type of friendship developed.
No.
So
yeah, I mean they got along, and I think again, when it comes down to loyalty, and it comes down to just the mission, I mean, Boba Fett's going to do what he can to finish the mission, and that's it, though. And I think a lot of that's true for a lot of characters in Star Wars. Is they're loyal to the mission, they're loyal to getting paid or fulfilling a debt. A lot of that is true in Star Wars. So yeah, once that's paid, Boba Fett's not going to go out of his way to help you. So I do think there's going to be some kind of something that Din's going to need, that Boba Fett's going to have, that he needs Boba Fett to help him provide, and it's not going to come free, by any means.
And that's the connection. So that's where I can see the crossovers coming between the two shows. But bringing it full circle to what you initially started the conversation with is what is the Book of Boba Fett going to be about? Because we don't know how many episodes it's going to be. It's going to be 6 episodes, 4 episodes. We don't know. But I think in the end, the only idea I have is people have been asking for Boba Fett's return since we saw him die in the Sarlacc pit. And I think this is Dave Filoni's way of giving us that back. Because you have to think about when they first introduced The Mandalorian, they had said we were never going to bring in Boba Fett and one of the reasons was we don't want the attention taken away from Mando. We're trying to develop a new cool guy that all of you fans will love. If we bring in Boba Fett, all the focus will be on him and we're going to forget about Mando. So I think now that they've put them both in there and they see that we love all of them, I think this is just their way of saying, all right, you guys got Boba Fett back. We're going to tell you his story, and then he's going to go off into the sunset on his own. And that's probably, going back to my guess, that it ends with him sitting on the throne and being his own crime boss. That's the end of his story. That's where we know Boba Fett is. He's alive and well, doing what he wants to do.
Yeah, I'm liking that a lot. I'm thinking that definitely could work. I think whatever we get as far as a teaser or a trailer, I think that's going to that's going to reveal a lot of that right there.
Yeah.
If he's leading this organization or whatever he's doing. I guess one last thing I want to kind of bring up possibly is tie it back into this comic, right? War of the Bounty Hunters. You know, this does seem like it leaves the door open that possibly Akira could show up in this timeline. Crimson Dawn could very well be out there. We don't know. We haven't heard anything about it. Obviously, we've been most Star Wars fans have always been privy to knowing that, you know, there's basically three major crime syndicates: the Hutts, the Pikes, Black Sun, right?
Right.
Crimson Dawn is another one that we were introduced to in Solo. So it's definitely possible that Crimson Dawn has been around ever since Solo. It seems like at some point we know, like I said earlier, Maul got killed, and it seems like Kira has continued, although in this book she's trying to make a return. So something has happened to the syndicate. It's either gone away. Maybe the Empire had a lot to do with that. And now that the Empire is gone, this is the opportunity now to bring this back, right?
Yeah.
So I don't know. I think there's a chance that Kira, Crimson Dawn, definitely could be a situation that Boba has to address during his series, possibly. You think?
I mean, it would be fantastic if she comes back. Maybe, as you were talking, another idea came to my mind. What if the Book of Boba Fett is about him taking over whatever's left of each syndicate, if they're still around at this time? Maybe he combines them all together and leads, you know, he kills the leader of the Black Sun, he kills the leader of, you know, whichever, and takes it all over. And now he's on the top of all of them.
Which is basically what Darth Maul did back in the Clone Wars. So he killed the leader of Black Sun, killed the leader of the Pikes, basically took control. The Hutts were the ones I don't think he could ever get kind of a hold of, but he basically combined Black Sun, the Pikes, and the Mandalorians that kind of defected Death Watch.
Right.
And combined it and called it the Shadow Collective. So that was his first forte into leading his own crime syndicate. So that's very much could be what happened here, is that, you know, because of the Empire was gone, and all this chaos is going on, these crime syndicates just do not have a good stranglehold on everybody and everything. And maybe it's Boba that definitely comes in and, yeah, like you said, starts taking control. And it'd be interesting because if Kira is leading Crimson Dawn, there's that possible confrontation that we could see there.
Yeah. Now, would they do that, though? Because if everything you just said, they've already done that story, so would they do it again just because it's live action?
Yeah, I mean, it seems like they've repeated, you know, different storylines here and there. So, and not many people know, obviously, unless if you watched Clone Wars, you would know, in a sense. But
yeah,
it's definitely a possibility. I think it's definitely a possibility that this series with Boba Fett is more centered around the underworld of Star Wars, not necessarily the New Republic, not necessarily Mandalorian or anything like that. I think it's definitely what is happening behind the scenes in the crime world now that the New Republic is back and there's not an empire there that's basically letting them do what they want to do, right? So it's going to be interesting how that plays in, if that's what his intent is. May not even be his intent.
We might be way off the mark here.
Right.
Yeah.
Could it be that Boba Fett is actually trying to end all the syndicates?
Yeah.
Maybe he's the good guy in the story.
Maybe he's the good guy now. Based on fan popularity, yeah, would they turn him into a good guy? And but maybe not a full-on good guy. Maybe because I always call he's like a gray area guy. We saw what he helped out in the Mandalorian, which was good stuff that he did. So maybe he's just going to tiptoe into the light side for a little while. And,
he's the anti-hero, right? That's what they call it, the anti-hero.
Exactly. That's a good term. Yeah.
So,
yeah, I mean, we could be way off, and it could be something completely different. But it's just hard to. I can't see them changing Boba Fett too much because the reason he's so popular is because of who he is and how cool he is to be that way. So why would they steer away from that? Wasn't there? I don't know. Years ago, wasn't there supposed to be an Underworld story that they were producing, whether it was a movie or TV show? So maybe they're taking all of those ideas and finally bringing it to fruition with the Book of Boba Fett.
That's a very good point, because that was George Lucas's first live action TV. That was going to be the first live action Star Wars series, a Star Wars Underworld. Apparently, they had 100 scripts done for the series. But back in the early 2000s, when they were wanting to do it, it just cost so much. I think it was like 10 million episodes. They could not get the budget under 10 million episodes, so they were like, "Wow, it's just too expensive. We can't do it this much." So he held on to him, hoping that maybe one day. I mean, if he had the volume back then, they would have been able to do it. But you're right. Filoni could have known that stuff. Right, he obviously
George would have told him.
Yeah, he probably had access to all those scripts, and he definitely could be adapting a lot of those storylines into this. That's a very good idea. I like that idea a lot, actually. That definitely was going to show a lot of the underworld. I don't think, in his mind, I'm not sure when that took place. If it took place during the movies, during the original trilogy, or was it after? Right. Because there was rumors that Boba Fett was in it. So it probably took place prior to episode 6, prior to him dying in the Sarlacc or whatever.
Yeah.
But that's a great thought, because there's a lot of material there.
Well, you say 100 episodes or 100 scripts, man, that means the Book of Boba Fett's going to be like War and Peace. 100 chapters.
Yeah.
Jeez.
Yeah, I don't think they'll take all of those, but there's definitely story arcs in there, I'm sure, that they could adapt for this. Yep. So
very cool.
Love it.
I'm excited to wait and see. Like, at least that's coming this year. At least we get that in December.
Yes.
Which is only 6 months away now.
Crazy that it's already halfway through this year, and we'll be here. We'll be here before we know it. So all right, good man. Stuff. Well, thanks for joining me on this Cyber Ren to talk a little bit about that. Yeah. Obviously, we will talk more about that Book of Boba Fett on the Mandalore podcast. Go check that out.
We will
on all your podcast feeds. Of course, go to InsideTheForce.com and check out all our other shows: Beyond the Saga, Council Sessions, Masters of the Order. Got some Beyond the Sagas recorded just this week, so we got more of those rolling out here soon.
Nice.
I will be in Disney next week. So come back in a couple weeks. I'll tell you all about my trip.
Yeah.
Won't be too much different than my other trips, probably, but you never know.
I still want to see pictures, though.
I'm gonna definitely build another droid, probably, and walk
cool.
around Batu and do all that stuff. So
one day I'll be down there with you.
Yes, that's right. One day. So yes, thanks everybody for listening and watching. We will be back in a couple weeks, and go check out Cyber Ren on his shows. He's covering all the DC, not all of them, but most of the TV shows right now. Superman and Lois, tomorrow, Legends of Tomorrow,
and Stargirl.
Correct.
Yep.
Not doing the Flash, huh? Not doing the Flash.
No, well, actually, when I started Arrow Squad, there was already a duo doing the Flash. So, and that show got passed on through a couple different hosts over and over again. And then when it eventually got closed down, we didn't want to take it over. We already had too much on our plate. So, but yeah, Stargirl, Legends of Tomorrow, and Superman and Lois. So you can check out Tomorrow's Legends is the name of the show for that.
Tomorrow Legends, that's right. All right, guys, thank you very much. As always, please, thanks for following us and listening to us, and come back in a couple of weeks. We will talk to you then. Thanks again, Cyber Ren. Take care.
Of course. Take it easy, bud. Have a good trip.
Thank you. Have a great week, everybody. See you in a couple of weeks. May the Force be with you.